G'day, I'm Debbie O'Shea, and this is the Crescendo Music Education Podcast, episode number 136. This podcast is being recorded on the lands of the Turrbal people. I acknowledge them as the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. They were the first music makers on this land. And here I am, back with Real Teachers, Real Stories, and my guest in this episode is Claire Hornagold. And yes, she does deliver the gold. Sorry, that was terrible, wasn't it? So much to learn. She really got me thinking. So yet again, we've had quite a long chat, so I'm going to divide it into 2 episodes. So this is part 1. One of the standout features for me is her use of questions and curiosity. It's really made me think the things that she talks about doing in her classroom. I know you're going to love it. Part 1, Real Teachers, Real Stories, Claire Hornagold. And I would like to welcome to the Crescendo Music Education Podcast, Claire Hornagold. Hello, Claire.
Hello, Debbie. Nice to be here.
Now, Claire is one of my guests in the Real Teachers, Real Stories series. So before we get to our little guiding questions and we dig a little bit into your experiences and you can share your wisdom with all of our wonderful listeners, I'm going to just read a brief bio so people get a little background of who you are. Claire Hornagold. Oh, good start. Hey, Claire. Okay. Claire Horn. Oh, I did it again.
Third time lucky.
Third time. Claire Hornagold is a music teacher in Brisbane with over 20 years' experience teaching both instrumental music and classroom music. She graduated with honours from the Queensland Conservatorium and began teaching with Education Queensland in 2011. During this time, Claire has been a primary music specialist, an instrumental music teacher, and a team teacher in a general classroom. Her passion lies with classroom music and also curriculum. And as a result, she has rewritten the P6 music curriculum at 2 different schools and has started rewriting the curriculum for version 9 at her current school as part of their innovation team. Claire strongly believes in making links between music and other aspects of student learning, and she actively seeks opportunities to incorporate other learning into music lessons and assessment. Claire has also worked heavily in the extracurricular music space in growing choral programs, initiating piano concerts and whole school singing sessions. Oh, I love them, yes. And being producer, now that's big, for 2 primary school musicals. She is taking on an additional challenge this year of being a Year 2 teacher 1 day a week and is looking forward to seeing what this brings. Oh, there's a lot in there, Claire.
Yeah, I like to be busy, and I have discovered that going to school and doing my job and coming home and switching off is not me. And that's great for those people who are, like, that's absolutely fantastic. But for me, it's like I'm always wanting a new challenge and something else. And so being just a music teacher is part of what I want, but then I want to add extra things in there. So I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm also a perfectionist. So sometimes they can make things a bit difficult together, but I always strive for that challenge and want to do the very best job of whatever I'm doing. So that's what fills my bucket.
Well, you're in the right job, aren't you? If you're
Definitely.
Based on music in a school, you're never going to be bored, are you? You're going to go, good, I can do that, I can do that. Musicals, I have done them in the past. So they're just so big. But good on you. If that floats your boat, you do that. It's great for the kids. It's just
it is.
Isn't it?
And we had our musical last year. And so at our school, we do it. It's actually a college from prep to 12. So I was involved in the primary school musical. And then every second year, it'll be primary, and the other year it's the high school. So this year is the high school musical. And I have said, I'll help out if you need, but I'm having my break. So I'm really looking forward to this year, not having that extra step of the musical, but I did really enjoy doing it. And then next time I'm very happy to do it again. So.
Yes. sounds wonderful but busy. Yes, have that break. I like it. Okay, let's start on our teachers, our teacher questions to help guide our chat. All right, number one, as a teacher, how do you define success?
For me, success is any little thing that goes right. And sometimes it's little, sometimes it's big. And I find, yes, I'm a perfectionist and a lifelong learner, but I'm also an optimist. And I like to try and find like little things, like little moments where it's like, oh, this is great. So I will find, and it could be, a little aha moment. Someone's like, oh, I get that now. Or it might be someone, if we've got mini whiteboards and they're like, oh, look, I've drawn a fancy czar, which is what I call the proper rest. And so it could be something like that. It could be a lesson going really well, like for a class that you can extend, and you set a challenge. I had a prep class last year that were probably overall the brightest prep class I've had. And it was, I could do everything the same as the other ones, but it's like extending them and let's do a bit more, and tapping the beat in different places. And can we try tapping the beat on our legs and our knees, but then spread out and tap the beat on the knees of the people next to us and things like that. And I would never have dreamed of trying that with prep, but that class was ready. And then they could mostly do it, like not everyone, but most of them could do it. And so that was a success for me. So it's like that little bit of, oh, okay, this went really well. And then being able to reflect back at the end of the lesson or the end of the day. I also write myself notes after lessons too. So like if I teach, 4 prep classes in a day, then it might be, oh, okay, this went really well. I actually ended up swapping these activities, or I didn't get to this. And so I find that helps me to reflect on what worked and what didn't, but also it's really valuable for the following year, because I've been teaching for nearly 14 years now. So I'm at the point where I don't have to keep reinventing the wheel every time. Sometimes I do, but a lot of the time I look back on what I did the previous year, but I also then look at those notes that I made to myself, and like my favorite sentences where I put worked really well, because then I know I can just copy and paste that lesson and make some little changes if I need for the cohort. But otherwise I'll have a look and see if it said, oh, okay, I didn't do this, or they got a bit bored going for this particular activity. I'll sometimes write, next time try it this way. So I might have notes from last year that say 2025 try doing this. So I find that can also help me set up for having those little moments of success. And then even from lesson to lesson, if I teach, like say, for example, I taught last year I had out of year 2s, I had 10 year 2 classes because we're such a big school. So getting to do things 10 times, it's pretty big. So I teach prep to year 3 at our school because it's so big. So that's also a benefit in that I get to work with the little ones, which I really like, but also I get to do things 8, 10 times and get better, so I can then, find those little success moments along the way.
Wow, by the end of 10, you've got that lesson down, haven't you?
I do. I always really sorry for the first class and the first couple of classes. And sometimes I'll even say to them, I had year 3s last year, which was part of our new version 9 unit we were doing, which was like about First Nations music. And I've never done anything like that before. So I said to my first class, you're my guinea pigs, and I explained to them what that means. And it's like, I'm going to try out things with you. And a lot of times I then would say to them during the lesson, I'm sorry, what I thought was going to happen actually hasn't turned out that way. And now I know what to do for next time. And so I think they kind of liked knowing that. I think some of them got a bit frustrated, but that's just part of how life and teaching goes, where you have to try something. And I'm a big believer in just get in and try something. And it doesn't have to be massive. It can be something small. And again, look for that success. Did it work? Like, yay. If it didn't work, then that's fine. Then you can either tweak it or do something different, but at least you know.
Yes.
So yes, it's about just try things and just see and find those little moments that make you smile and make you think of that success.
Yes, and the point is too that what you're talking about as not successful is still going to be pretty fabulous. Like
it is.
It's not like, no, they've rioted and run out of the room. It hasn't gone quite as well as you wanted. So it's not like they're terribly disadvantaged. It's just not as smooth, maybe.
Yes, and I do fall in that trap. It's a good point you make, because I am that perfectionist and I aim for 80% or above, and so anything that isn't quite like that, sometimes I do become quite hard on myself, and I do have to think about it's like, no, they are still doing really well, and then also just having that note to myself that, okay, well, that lesson didn't go quite as well, so the following week I'll just be aware of that. And so sometimes I'll write that in my notes. Oh, this class need to do this bit. So yeah, they still will stay together. So over the course of the unit or the year, like there's no difference, but just from my very high standards of where I'd like it to be, I have room for improvement, looking at it the optimistic way.
Yes, yes, it certainly does sound like you're a perfectionist, but self-awareness is the first step, isn't it?
Yeah, it makes it much easier,
Yeah,
much happier for it.
and your kids are quite lucky. All right, what now? It's going to be hard to actually just pick one, so it's okay if there's a couple or a general. What's the most creative lesson or lesson segment you've ever taught, and what made it special?
That's a tricky one.
Mm.
I've found over the last few years in particular, I think as I've got more comfortable with teaching, I can think on the fly a lot more. And so sometimes it will be little things where we'll be in the middle of doing something and then like, so we might be practicing the beat sitting down and then it's like, actually, this isn't working. Let's go stand up on our circles and then practice the beat that way, or find a partner and do the beat that way. With year twos at the end of last year, we were singing the song In an A, which they loved. And then what I also did one lesson, it was like near the end of term two. So we'd finished all of our assessment and learning. And so we did In an A and then we talked about where it came from. And so I showed them a world map. We talked about Australia and the Torres Strait Islands. And then most classes went into very different tangents on what they were talking about, or what they were interested in, but then them being able to ask questions. So it might be, oh, where's Korea, or where's Africa, and why is Australia in pink on my map but another country is in a different color? One class ended up talking about the dinosaurs because we were then talking about, and I explained what Pangea was, which was where back millions of years ago all of the countries were together, like one landmass, which is called Pangea. And so you'd get off in really creative ways, but things they were really interested in. And that's one thing I found, particularly that year two space. That's where I've tried the curiosity things. And sometimes I'll let them say, okay, you can ask any question you like about music. What would you want to ask? And then we make a list. And then each lesson, I would set like a 2-minute timer and then we'd vote on 3 questions. So I'd ask 3 people, which question do you want to do? Like question 1, question 8, question 13. Okay. Show of hands. Who wants to do 1? Who wants to do 8? Who wants to do 13? Well, question 13, 1, right, let's set our 2-minute timer. Well, question 13 is, when was music invented? So we then explore, like I go onto Google and we look at when was music invented. We might talk about it as well. I had one class actually get that creative part of it. One class said, what if there's no music in the world? And so that was their question we explored for 2 minutes. And it was really cool because all I had to do was just choose a name and then that person would say something. I didn't have to add to the conversation because they had their ideas like, well, there wouldn't be a concert to go to. And, well, you wouldn't have a job because we wouldn't be in music because there's no music. And like, well, what if there was no music? Then we wouldn't hear a phone ringing. And just some really great ideas that they had, which I would never have expected them to come up with. But it proved to them, and I said to them at the end of that time, like, you actually had all these answers. Like, you didn't need me. It was you as a class and as individuals and people, like you could think of those answers yourself. So yeah, that was really bucket filling for me as well, being able to listen to 7 and 8 year olds come up with these ideas of what their thoughts are, because they're children now, but they're going to become adults in the future. And so adults, so children really are like little adults now. They just haven't grown quite the same way. So I found that rethinking my thinking around what students are capable of, that's really helped too, in being able to get their input and their ideas and then seeing their creativity and things like that. So that's been a really fun part of teaching for me.
Oh, I love that. I love that thought process. And of course, what you're saying is so true. We really do have to give them more credit. They're not little empty buckets that we're filling. Yeah, like we know that. But often in our job, because we're on such a limited time and we have so much stuff we want to put in their little bucket, that sometimes I think we're a bit guilty of having the filling the empty bucket mentality. So I love the reminder that they're not the empty buckets. And what a great idea for a lesson segment. You're only giving up a couple of minutes. So
And
you're not, yeah.
It worked really well because actually at our school, because it is a college, we would sometimes have meetings with people, like pedagogy type meetings. We've got like a thinking school of thought around trying to get our students to think creatively and critically. And so part of that, we were having a meeting and I was talking with a couple of high school teachers and we were all saying about, oh, we'd like our students to be more curious. So that's actually where I came up with the idea from having it. All right, year two, at that point in term two, our assessment wasn't as involved. So I had a bit more time. So it was the end of term one, the last lesson, that's when we brainstormed our list of questions. So classes would have anywhere from like 15 to 35 questions, depending on the class. And so each class had their own list. And the beginning of every lesson, it would get a 2-minute timer. It would probably take about 5 minutes total to then put the question up. I read through them all. We'd get to vote, we'd answer it, and then we'd move on. But they loved it. And I'd still get students later in the year asking to talk more about it or having their own ideas of questions there. So yes, that 5 minutes might have taken away from some other things we could do, but I also think that, yes, I'm there to teach music, but I'm also there to help grow people. And I think music is a part of that and is a very important part of that, but I see it fitting into the growth of the individual. And so if then helping them think curiously and creatively and critically and, you know, that collaboration or that wonder, if that takes away a little bit of music time but it adds to them as people, I'm very happy to do that.
Because we're teaching children. We're not actually teaching music, we're teaching children. Well, we happen to be teaching music to children, but
that's right. I think music is the vehicle of us to teach them. So yes, we are teachers, we just happen to do it through music. But yeah, I see first and foremost, we are teachers to children. So let's do whatever we can to help those people grow.
Yeah, I love it. Did you bring the questions back later in the year? Like every now and then, do you pop one in or?
I didn't actually, but that is a good idea. So last year was the first time I did that. So, and I probably will do it again. So it would be interesting to come back and have a look at those questions. Occasionally we would. Or there might be one class, I think one class they had a question, can you play 2 instruments at the same time? And then it made me think, I remember seeing James Morrison, the Australian jazz trumpeter, where he was playing trumpet with his right hand and piano with his left hand. Yes. So we then talking about that question, I said, I actually have a really good video that I can show you. So I then made a note to myself and I even put it at the top of their PowerPoint. So it was to whichever class it was, find the James Morrison video. And so then in a future lesson, which I think I had forgotten the following week, but then they came back like, oh, can you show us that video? So yeah, there would be times I would come back and look at it again. I might even look at it now they're in year 3. So when I teach those year 3 classes, it might be interesting just to show them, oh, these are your questions from year 2. What else are you interested in, or what can you already answer? So yes, I think being able to come back to that. And I also want to find a way of showing it like around the room somewhere. So it's not just on my PowerPoint for that class, being able to, whether I print it out or we do a big brainstorm and they get to write down the questions themselves, but something so other people when they come in to the room can see it, and then other classes as well. And so to help document what we're doing, that's sort of the next goal for me, to find ways that I can document what I do with each class or each grade, but in a way that other people can explore it. But I also want to be aware of time for myself too, that it doesn't take too much time. So for example, year 2s, we do ostinato, and there's a video on YouTube which a lot of you may have come across, but it just says over and over, an ostinato is a pattern that repeats. So I have year 4s I'd sometimes cover and they'd ask to watch that video. Like, they love it. So what I would sometimes do, especially if I then wasn't there for a lesson and they had to have music with a different teacher, and so normally our supply teachers don't know anything about music, which is fine, but that would be an activity. Then I'd give them a little slip of paper and I want you to write out what an ostinato is, and you can draw an ostinato with it. So they would write, an ostinato is a pattern that repeats, and then they might make a pattern with colours or shapes or symbols or music things. And then what I started to do was to collate those, and then around my year 2 wall I would like pin them up to make like a border, which was a great idea, but it took so long. And so it was that type of thing. Once I'd started, like, oh, well, I'm committed now, I might as well keep going. But then also being aware of, okay, that's a great idea, but that creates a lot of extra work for me. Is there a way that I can still do something similar to get the same effect, but that doesn't involve that extra work? So that, in some cases, that's where I'm at. So like the list of questions, I could, print out the questions and stick them up. That might be what I end up doing next. But then if it's going to be recording the answers to the questions, how can I get the students to do that so it's not me later on having to write down all the things we talked about? So yeah, it's that ongoing process of, as I said, lifelong learner, trying to find ways to improve what I do, but also be kind to myself.
Yes, yes, I hear you. Great ideas. That will be so fun to try those. I love it, that question. What is one piece of music every student should experience?
That's also a tricky one. I was thinking about that, and I don't know if there's one necessarily, I think, for every student, but I do think it's really important that students learn about the music from where they live and where they're from. So I would say, since we're in Australia, Australian music. And I think it would be really important for them to know at least one, but preferably two or three or more Australian songs really well. And that could be something like Botany Bay or Waltzing Matilda. It could be I Come From a Land Down Under. It could be Yothu Yindi's song Treaty. It could be You're the Voice. Like, I don't think it really matters what it is, as long as they have some understanding of it being an Australian song or a song from their country and their culture. If they have other countries and other cultures that in their family, I think it's really important for them to know that too. What I actually discovered last year, again, with that year 3 unit, we were looking at First Nations music, which was that new unit, which I hadn't done. But what I ended up doing as a starting point was I asked them about songs that were important to them. And then I had 10 year 3 classes. So across all of those classes, I collated some of those answers, and then I basically gave all the classes a choice the following week. And so it was like, okay, you can listen to, there's a song from New Zealand called Te Iwe, which turns out is a lot of New Zealand women, so the Maori women will do this song, and it's like a welcoming to their area, similar to the haka, but for women. I had some students wanted an Indian national anthem. We had lots of different ideas, some Korean music, but I really found the Indian national anthem, actually, because we have a lot of students from India, that really, again, made me realize, oh, wow, this is something like my thinking of, okay, well, this is an anthem we can listen to, wasn't their idea. It was like, oh, wow, we actually get to listen to a song from our country and our culture. And a lot of them most of them sang along. A lot of them wanted to stand up and sing. They asked if they could do it the following week. So what I'm actually thinking that for this year, when I do that, is that I found a website that has the list of all the anthems, and you can click on the recordings and just listen to the instrumental. So they don't have the words with it, but it will be, all right, I want you to choose an anthem that's important to you, and I want you to then listen to it. And then because we look at the musical elements as well with that unit. So it will be, okay, I want you to then tell me about the musical elements that you hear. So we might use the Australian one as an example, or I might use something else. So then those students who would only choose the Australian anthem have something to talk about. Or it might be, no, we'll do the Australian one together, but now go and choose a different one. And I want you to then listen to it. You can then write why you chose about it if you like, or you can then tell me, okay, was it fast or was it moderate? Was it slow? Was it loud or was it quiet? Did it have high instruments, low instruments? So that's what I'm thinking at this point. I will see how it goes later on. But yeah, just that understanding and reminder of they have really cool ideas. And then I suppose to get back to your question about what are pieces of music that students should really know, it's just something that's important to them and their culture and their heritage. So then they have that connection, because music really is about connecting people with something. It could be with other people, it could be with a culture, it could be with a memory. Like I think music just connects people. And so it's a way of then us just trying to find, well, how can we help to connect them that way? So if there's a particular piece of music that's important to someone, that's great. But I think as a starting point, find music that's from your country and your culture and explore that really well. And then that will help lead open to anything and everything that's left.
I love it. And I particularly love what's coming through to me as I'm listening to you is, as much as possible with many hundreds of children, you're allowing the children to guide their learning, their own learning. I mean, it's tricky because of the huge numbers, but it sounds like you're doing that so well through questioning and following their interests and questions. So it's fascinating. I love it. All right.
I'm really enjoying doing that. What helps us with the year threes is they have iPads. So from our school, everyone has an iPad from year three. So like when I was then trying to find out, well, what songs are important to you in your culture, there was an activity they did on an app called Seesaw. So I could then look through all of their pages and see what they had. So again, it took time to put that together, but it was very valuable and I would do it again. But also then having done it once, I know they say that New Zealand song I referred to, Te Iwe E, there were lots of classes that like that song. So next year, that's going to be an option regardless of whether anyone suggests it. So yeah, over time, you can still use things from in the past that will work for that age group or that group of people would be interested in that. But yes, it is. I do try and make sure I can always have their ideas and their flavour in there too.
Yes. Fabulous. Thank you for sharing that. I love it. I'm sure that all of the people listening are going, oh, I could do that now. How could I do that? I think that's great. You're getting us thinking, which is what we
Good.
want.
That's my goal.
Yeah. All right. We're up to the challenge bit. We don't want to be negative Nancy, but we know that all of us are facing certain challenges. So what do you think is your biggest challenge as a music educator? And how do you address it?
Time, which I don't think I'm alone in saying that. I think it's time from a 30-minute perspective. Although, to be honest, I think I've gotten pretty good at that. So as mentioned in my bio this year, I'm going to be teaching a year two class 1 day a week, which I asked to do as an extra challenge. Again, wanting to extend myself and then be able to teach students as students. But I also, because I do strongly believe in the linking up between subjects and between student learning. So I'm really curious to see what it is that they're learning in year two that I can then help with music to support that, or that music can help to work on with what they're doing in their classroom. So I'm looking forward to that. But for me, actually, my biggest challenge there is I don't just have 30 minutes, I have a day. And how is that going to be different? So yeah, from that perspective, the time feels a little bit different going that way. But from a music point of view, yeah, the time of trying to fit things in the 30 minutes, and I think trying to keep classes at the same point as well. So, if I have 10 classes, but one class is 5 minutes late, or one class there's a fire drill, or another class there, we get in this discussion talking about Pangea, and it's like, oh, we need to come back to what we're doing. So trying to make sure that all the classes can keep at that same learning and the same point and the same understanding. Another one I find is really hard is assessment, and then the time that's given in lessons to do assessment, but also then having to catch students up. So that's probably the biggest one, is when students are away, and they might be away for the catch-up lesson too. So it might be that whatever the assessment is, we happen to have 2 lessons, plus there's a catch-up lesson. If they're then away that catch-up lesson, it's then I have to use my non-contact time to go and get them, which I'm happy to do, but it can take a lot of time when you've got a lot of classes like that. So it's, again, that ongoing me trying to find ways to improve, like how can I make things better, particularly around assessment, to make sure I'm not I'm not using as much time as I sometimes do, but still keeping it really, I suppose, like keeping the integrity and keeping it authentic. And I don't want to dumb down or water down what they're doing just to make it easier for me. So I'm always wanting to do the right thing by the students. And so if I then have to give up extra time for it, I'm happy to do it if it works for the students. So it's that fine balance between the time for me and making sure I can get all my things done, but also the validity of what they're doing, and trying to make sure that both of those things match up. And I don't think I will ever get there completely. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But again, I take those little wins. So like if there's some year two tasks that I've come across that are really easy to mark, and so anything like that, I take that little win, like, great, okay, it's going to take 15 minutes a class to mark something rather than 30 minutes. So yeah, it's trying to find those little bits along the way, always trying something different. If I'm not happy with something, I will make some little change and see if that makes things better. And so hopefully over time, I will get better at managing all of the time.
Yes, I know. Everybody listening now, if they're on the treadmill, they're doing this. They're nodding. If they're in the car, they're going, yes. So much of what you said, that's just the life of a music teacher, isn't it? But it's certainly been my goal over the last few years, is to really consider my workload as well as what I'm giving to the children. And hopefully that's coming through with the things that I share, because you have to consider yourself, but still keep it authentic and reasonable for them as well. And I do think the catch-ups it's a real problem. And I know, well, the last school that I was in, that I have just recently left, it's difficult to actually get children to come in your non-contact time, because that's during, spelling mastery, and they can't be released, or, because everybody is guarding their time, everyone is feeling time poor. So even if you're willing to give up your time to do catch-ups, and I think everyone knows what I mean by catch-ups on the assessment, sometimes you can't even do that. Even lunch breaks. No, you can't take the children's lunch break. They need a break. Even if I really have to do this assessment, no, you can't. So it's a real problem. And I think you have to think about that before you even start the assessment, don't you? So absolutely, biggest challenge. I'm with you there. What about a teaching moment that completely changed the way you think about music education?
This would also tie into students being little people. A moment for me. So it was a few years ago when I first got to the school I'm at now. In year ones, we were doing responding as their assessment. It was about music they listened to. So my end goal was, we're going to listen to In the Hall of the Mountain King, and then I'm going to give them some choices of what the song is about, and they're going to be able to tell me it's about a boy running because it starts walking slow, like you can hear it slow, like he's walking, and then he ends up running because he's going fast because he's being chased. So I think I had found it like a little cartoon picture of a boy being chased by a dog. So that was in my head. Okay, that's where we're going. So backwards mapping from that, all right, let's have some practices with some other songs. And then I played them the song, the Ballet of the Unhatched Chicks from Pictures in an Exhibition, which is like really hard, yum, 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 like really cutesy, like the little chickens jumping around. And so I then had some pictures on the board for them. So there was a picture of a chicken, there was an owl, and there was a snake. And then I was blown away by the answers the students gave me, that they said, oh, well, it sounds like it's an owl because the music's really high and owls fly high and their hooting sound is high. It sounds like a snake because snakes are really fast and I can hear it slithering fast to try and get its food. And I was, in my head thinking I'm going to get chicken sounds because it sounds like a chicken. But not only are they giving me what I would call wrong answers, they're completely justifying why they think that. And that for me was a really big moment, in that I don't have all the answers. Mm-hmm. And what I think might be right, but they also have other ideas that are right too. And at another time, again, year one, but it was I think a lesson that I left for a replacement teacher to do, but we did the wheels on the bus. And so I then had drawn some little like graphic notation symbols. So it might be like an X starting small and then getting bigger for like the baby crying, getting louder. And so I then gave them all those options. I had the answer sheet. But then when I ended up teaching that lesson one time, the students came up, most of them came up with different things that still matched. And so I went to tell them, no, that's not right. This is the baby crying because this. And then I looked and said, oh, they've done like a squiggly line as like the baby crying, and they've got egg shakers and they're shaking it. And it's like, actually, that works too. So for me, then it became about not what I think, it's about, well, what do you think, but tell me why. And so I'll always explain to them, and especially when we're doing responding practice, or if I'm looking at the A level, is often that justifying thing. So I can tell them that you can think something and someone else can think something completely different, but as long as you both say why, you're both right. So from that moment, I've pulled back on what I give them as options. So like now with the year ones listening to In the Hall of the Mountain King, I actually said to them, okay, let's imagine you're a director of a movie and you can make the movie about whatever you like, but this song's in the movie. What would you choose? And so they could then draw a picture or write about it and then tell me what they thought the song was about. So rather than me saying, okay, well, choose from these three options and then tell me, it's about, okay, well, what ideas do you have in your head, in your brain, and then tell me why you think that. So I think, for me, realizing that if I trust them to come up with the ideas, it's not about me telling them and it's going to go my way. It's nearly a case of, okay, well, this is kind of my question. What do you think the answer is? We had some really great discussions out of that. So I try and do that as much as I can, even from prep, working up.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I love it. And it's something to remind everybody of, I think. What about something funny or unexpected that's happened in one of your lessons?
I would go back to my first lesson with a year two class. It's not so much about the music teaching, but it was just really fun. I was trying to get to know everyone's names. So it was in a circle, and then we were going around with their names. And then I just came up with the idea of, okay, I want you to tell me something that starts with the same letter as your name. And then that's how I'm going to refer to you for the rest of the lesson. And I said, actually, that's how all of us are going to refer to you, because they knew each other already. So, for example, there was a boy called Nathan, and he said Nathan Nuts. So for the whole lesson, we all called him Nathan Nuts. And so even if they then wanted to, oh, Nathan said this, like, no, that's not his name. And then the kids started picking up, no, he's Nathan Nuts, remember? And then I had a boy called Noah and a girl called Nia, and they chose each other's names. And so I still remember that. They're year six now. But yeah, it was Nia Noah and Noah Nia. And then I had a boy whose name was Tommy, and he was Tim Tam Tommy. And so like just things like that. And they had so much fun. And it was really fun for me, but it was also great for getting to know the names, because I had that extra reminder. So Tim Tam Tommy, okay, then I didn't even have to remember his name was Tommy. If I just remember Tim Tams, then I knew, oh, his name starts with T, has to be Tim Tam Tommy. Or also it was then a nice way of being able to ask them, like, oh, what was your word that you came up with? They're like, oh, nuts. Oh, okay, that must mean you're Nathan. So then they're basically, if they're telling me their word was nuts, I know their name starts with N. So it made it easier from that point of view to do that. But it became really fun. And then I would even sometimes do that at the beginning of each year, like that first lesson, like, okay, I want you to choose something. I'd go through the roll. And so it was really good. I would start at the top of the roll, tell me something that starts with your name. And then we would all try and refer to that person with that name for the lesson. And sometimes I'd ask for it in following lessons as well. So yeah, it became very entertaining way of getting to know everyone.
I love that. That does sound like it could be quite fun and funny. And you are building a personal connection to that child. I have a child in the school I've just left that I taught from prep to the end of year six. And when he was in prep, and I'm not using his name, so I hope he doesn't mind. Very special student. He's fabulous. And he had this thing about cats at the time, right? So he would come up to me and go, meow. He wouldn't say hello. He didn't actually say much in the lessons at all, but would go, meow. And so I would go, of course, meow, back to him. That is the way we greeted each other for 7 years. He ended up being quite a tall boy, very, like quite a bit taller than me. And I would meet him anywhere, like, outside the senior toilets or in a performance or whatever. But no matter what, and believe me, he'd stop being obsessed by cats and, going meow all over the place. But he and I still could do meow. And that little connection, though it may seem silly, that's what works for kids. And that's what you're doing when they're choosing a word. And that's a little special connection with you, so they feel seen and understood. It's all to do with relationship.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important part of anything to do with people, but especially with teaching. When you were giving that story about seeing that student out around the school, reminded me that there's a family of a few students, but I'd never actually taught the older boy, but I taught the two younger girls. But then the older boy, when he saw me, would always say, hi, Mrs. Hornagold. And I'd say, hello, name. And it wouldn't matter where we were. He'd be in the middle of a conversation with his friends or walking somewhere else. He'd always say hello, because I think that his sisters really valued that connection. And I put the time into working with them, and I'd always say hello to him too. Like I could tell he was related to the girls that I taught, so it was easy to remember his name. And I think then, just students, as you say, feeling seen or feeling heard, and like they're noticed and valued as a person. It's not just a number in the school, but they are actually someone as a person that, other people do appreciate that, that's all anyone wants, to feel valued. And so it's great to be able to do that with students we teach or with other students, and then do it in music, but also out of that music lesson as well.
Mm-hmm. Taking the term teaching tool very loosely, what's your favourite teaching tool?
I love using those show me mini whiteboards in lessons.
Yes.
And I find that, yeah, students, it's so quick. It's so easy. I haven't gone down the path of scrapbooks because the schools I've at haven't had them. And then, photocopying and glue, like trying to get, say preps or year ones to glue things into books for me doesn't sound like a way I want to spend my lesson. Like great for those people who do, but I find other ways that I want to get things done. So I find those mini whiteboards are really helpful for them being able to draw things and then rub it out. Oh, actually, one thing that I was thinking of, like lessons that did go creatively and go well, was using those mini whiteboards with year twos, getting them to practice drawing their notes properly, but I also got them to draw them incorrectly. So I'd say, all right, we're going to draw a tar. So we've got our coloured in note pen and we add a stem on the right. Great. Okay. And then I would draw it up on the board. It's like, is that right? And so I draw an example, a non-example, or something that was wrong. And they'd say, no, it's not right. I'm like, well, yeah, it is, because I think it's a tar and it looks like a tar. They're like, no, but you haven't coloured it in. And it's like, oh, okay, so I have to colour it in. It's like, I want you now to draw a tar wrong. So and then I would often have a different coloured pen. And so it would be, okay, you might have a black pen to start, draw a proper tar. Now swap with the person next to you, draw a tar that's wrong. And so I'd put some other examples. It might be you make it look like a lollipop, or you add a flag or something like that. And they loved it. And I think it was because, again, they're being creative, but they're also reinforcing their understanding of what actually does a tar need to be a tar. But then they can also rub it out if they made a mistake. And for those students who were worried about getting it right the first time, they could then rub it out with their rubbers, but also they're then seeing other examples. So they might have drawn their tar not coloured in, thinking it was right. But then when they see that other people have it like that, or they can then hear the discussions about, oh, no, that's not right, because they could then adjust it themselves. So I find it's great for also being able to take photos of things that students have done. So if they've done something quickly, oh, come here, I take a photo, you hold up your mini whiteboard, photo on the iPad, okay, go rub it off. And then I've got that record of what they've done, and I can print out those photos and put them up as well. So I find just those mini whiteboards is great for being able to, students be able to show what they can do where they don't feel worried about the pencil on the paper. It's also great for when I'm finishing off assessment with students as well. I've been able to get them to write out new words of a song, or here are the steps of how to draw a treble clef. Let's have a practice with things like that. The other teaching tool I was thinking about is actually something I use for choir. So there's a website called wheelofnames.com. And I have found this was a game changer for me with choir and getting students to come along religiously to rehearsals. So what I do is I have 2 different wheel spinners for the choir. My first one is just a general, you turn up to choir, you get your name on the wheel spinner, and I will enter their name as many times as they've come to choir in that term. So if they came to choir 4 times in the term, Debbie from 2A is up there 4 times. So Debbie 2A, Debbie 2A, Debbie 2A, Debbie 2A. I just copy and paste. If, Trisha from 2B has come to 9 rehearsals, it'll say Trisha 2B 9 times. So it takes a lot to put it in, to enter it, and I only do it the week before. So basically I do it at the end of week 9, because it's much quicker to type a name once and then copy it 8 times. But then I put it up on the wheel, and then we spin the wheel, and I have a little music pencil for whichever name gets chosen, and they loved it. So the first time that happened, I had lots of kids like, oh, but I was at more rehearsals and that, well, not according to the role. And then the following term, like, it just skyrocketed with how many were there. And then the other thing I do is for 100% attendance. So if they have been to choir every time they've been at school, so if they're away from school, that's fine, they can still have 100% attendance. But basically, if they haven't skipped choir, their name goes on a special, like a different wheel spinner, and then I spin the wheel again. And that, again, I found that's where a big change was, because then suddenly you get the students who are like, oh, I don't feel like going to choir today, and they skip it. Suddenly they don't skip it anymore because they want their name on that wheel spinner. So I found, doing that, just made it really engaging as well. Like, you could then, even as behaviour management, get it ready to start choir, just put the wheel spinner up on the board, and they all get excited because they're looking at names, and then they're like, oh, okay, let's find out who's going to win. So, I found just doing that, it was actually really surprising how well it worked, and just how much fun it was for the students, and getting them back. And then once they're there, that's when you can have all the fun in the world with choir. But especially for starting off choirs, or where attendance wasn't working as well, I found that was something that was gold for me.
I love it. Well, Pop, I think many people listening know about the Wheel of Names, but I will certainly put the link in the show notes as well, and because I think it's handy to have it there in case people don't know about it. They are fabulous tools, both of those. All right. What advice would you give to a graduate Claire?
I would say you will have so much fun. I would actually, since I was just talking about choir, I used to not enjoy choir rehearsals. Like I would actually look forward to, I did choir at school, but not a lot. And I did a lot of bands. So I was a clarinet player. So I was comfortable with bands, but with choir, I didn't really feel like I knew what I was doing. So my advice to graduate Claire would be you will actually love choir. Stick with it. Just, yeah, put that time into it and you will really enjoy it. Like now it's one of the highlights of my week, getting to take choirs. So that would be from a choir point of view, you're going to love it. But I think from a teaching point of view, it's going to be lots of fun. You're going to learn along the way. I actually thinking about, I don't know if I would have any advice for myself. I think because I am a lifelong learner and I am a bit of a perfectionist, like I'm always aiming to try and do the best I can. So, yeah, my other bit of advice would be about writing notes to myself, as I mentioned earlier, just about that reflection of, oh, this went really well, or this didn't, or I didn't get to that activity. I've often found that helpful in terms of time. I used to plan too many activities, and I still do. I was a bit worried about having that extra time and nothing planned. But I then realized over time, like, having that extra time for, oh, we've got 4 minutes left. Oh, what game would you like to play? And again, leaving it up to them where they can have some input. I think, yeah, not trying to be so prescriptive with everything right from the start. So, yeah, just being that, yeah, kind to myself, notes about what worked and what didn't. You're going to end up loving choir, keeping that positive attitude that, finding those little successes, being able to enjoy your job, like find ways to enjoy the unenjoyable. So like even parent emails or, having to come along to staff meetings that don't interest you or, those extra boring things, writing names on marking guides. Like actually what I found really helpful is like listening to the Crescendo podcasts or other videos and things like that while I write names on marking guides. And then finding those little jobs where if it's highlighting things. So I used to like highlight, because we have to do marking guides for each student. I would highlight on the marking guide as I marked it, but sometimes it's easier just to mark it first and then later on go and highlight it. And again, you can then do something else. It could be a bit mindless while you do that. So you're just finding those little hacks of being able to make your job a little bit easier. I think if I could have found some of those a bit earlier on, it would make life easier for me now. But I also know that I will keep finding them. So in 5, 10, 20 years down the track, I'm going to be in a better place then than I am now.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's great advice. Advice that you actually really don't need because you are going through that learning process anyway. I hear you. All right. What do you wish more people understood about being a music teacher?
I wish they knew how fulfilling it can be. And I think because most teachers are the general class teachers that have their 25 or 28 students and they get to know them really well. And that is one thing I find with teaching music is we know students at a superficial level in comparison to a class teacher. So they know those students really well, but the number of times they say to me, I don't know how you remember so many names, because that's just part of what we do because we teach so many students. And then also the other comment I get is, I don't know how you do it in 30 minutes. Like that's hardly any time. So I suppose they kind of realize the difficulties of we don't have much time, but we have a lot of students. But I would like for other people to know it can be really rewarding. I actually love knowing that many students and having that connection, being able to walk around the school and name all or most of the students. And as I mentioned before, like our school is so big that I only teach prep to year 3, but because I teach that younger grade, by like this year's year 6s, I taught them all in year 2 when I arrived. So I will know every student, apart from those couple of new students that came in, but I'll be able to walk around the school and name 95% of the students. And so I actually really like that, and it feels like I'm connected to those students and to the school as well. So I think it would be nice for other teachers to to know that we all get to find our own ways of giving to the students. And I'm really fortunate the school that I'm at, and most of the schools that I've been at, the teachers do value me as a teacher, and I'm not just there as a provider of non-contact time for them, which I know a lot of specialist music teachers don't have that privilege. Unfortunately, they do feel like they're, oh, well, you take my students so I can do other stuff and I get them back, and I don't really care what happens. So my teachers I work with are really great at valuing what we do and knowing what music does fits in with everyone else. But I also do make that effort to make those connections with those teachers. So I'm not just in my own little silo. I go and find out what they're doing in the classroom, and year twos are doing poetry. Like, great, okay, well, when we learn ticker ticker, let's find some 4-syllable words that go with ticker ticker, and then let's make that into little sentences. And that's actually their composition then that they do. They get to write an 8-beat rhythm composition and put words with it, because that ties in with poetry. So yeah, finding those little connections and things like that, so we can get help to develop those students as a whole. It's not just about what we do in music or what they do in the classroom. It's about we can all work together, and even with our 30 minutes of music a week, if we're lucky enough to have that, we can then still make a difference for the students as a whole.
Thank you. Thank you. That's wonderful. Before we do the rapid fire questions, I just want to thank you for giving up your time. I know I've learnt a lot listening to you, and you've made me think about a lot of things, which is the whole idea of this Real Teachers, Real Stories. And I know that all of my listeners will be in the same place going, oh, what a great idea. So thank you so much for giving up your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being able to be on here. And thank you to you, Debbie, and what you do with Crescendo and the podcast, but also for giving teachers that opportunity to be able to share what they do. I find it really valuable to be able to hear from other teachers on the ground doing it, as opposed to, say someone in a department who taught 10 years ago telling us, oh, this is the best way to do it. Whereas if you actually hear from someone, oh, this is what I did last week, or this, my 6-year-olds love this, or year sixes really respond to blah, or whatever it is. Like I find that, being able to listen to all those different teachers and people, you and others, whenever we can share with other people, I think that's a great way of being able to do it. So thank you for providing that opportunity for us.
My pleasure, because obviously that's important to me. That sharing is just vital. It feeds our soul as well as our practice.
Yeah, and we can get other ideas as well that we can't come up with on our own, because otherwise you can come up with all the great ideas yourself, but unless you hear from someone else, then you're only ever going to think what you and your experience will think. Whereas if you get to hear from someone else, then, oh, actually that's a good idea, and I could do it like that, or it's like, oh, that makes me think I could do this, something else different. So yes, there's only benefits to be gained from sharing like that.
Thank you. That's a great thought to finish on. I love it. So here we go. 5 questions. We'll hear your answers. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Number 1, what's the most underrated instrument?
Bassoon. Do you want a why or just an answer?
Oh, you can give us a why.
Yeah, I think it's because it's the buffoon of the orchestra, and I used to play clarinet, and I actually really liked listening to the bassoon, and I think it can offer so much more. And like, say for example, the Rite of Spring solo, one of Stravinsky's ballets, and that just starts with bassoon at the beginning, and I think that's there's so much that it can be apart from the grandfather in Peter and the Wolf, and so it's not just that boom 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 boom. There's lots more it can do, and I think being able to learn more about what it's capable of would be great.
Love it. 2, who's your musical hero and how have they influenced you?
I have a few. The first one that came to mind was Stravinsky. I came across his music when I was in uni, and I never heard any of it before, and I just fell in love with everything he'd written. And so that might be part of why I mentioned the bassoon with Rite of Spring. Petrushka is another one of his ballets. That's probably my favorite Stravinsky piece. I just found that the way he could write for music and write for instruments and just get different sounds and different emotions and very quickly evoke certain feels, that was really cool with how he was able to do that. And then it gave that focus as a player trying to sort of do the best by what he'd written, all of that way. But then thinking about that question again, I would also, as cheesy as it is, I would actually say all of the music teachers that I've had, because in some way they've helped shape who I was or am as a musician and also as a music teacher. So I've been inspired by all of them for different reasons, and they've all helped lead me to where I am today.
Wonderful. Did you want to name any of them, or just are you afraid you'll miss someone out?
Probably afraid, like I think I should be able to name them all, but just in case. But even from, starting with my year 1 music teacher, that her name is Mrs. Tusas, she's no longer with us anymore, but being able to go from her up to the teachers that I had at my high school and at university, my clarinet teachers, my piano teachers, had singing lessons for a while. Like they've all done something in some way to help get me have that love of music, and to love of being a musician, but then also love of being able to give back as a teacher. Because when I was at uni, I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to be a musician, but I ended up teaching off the side to get some extra money and found I actually really enjoyed it. And so that's how I got into teaching. And so even through school, it was all about, well, I wanted to be the best musician I could. But I suppose looking back and thinking that in their job as a teacher, they helped me realize my potential. That's what I really appreciate about what they were able to do. And so it wasn't about, it was more about them helping me. And so I think, I was inspired by that. So then now I want to do that for other students, and you can get just as much satisfaction from helping a student achieve their musical potential as you can from doing it yourself. So yes, it's thank you to all of those teachers for doing that.
Number 3, what's a song or piece of music you wish you'd written?
I really like the tune of Danny Boy, the Irish song. So I would probably say that, although I would also, thinking about it, I would also say happy birthday, not because I want the fame of it, but because of that connections with others. And again, music being such an important part of bringing people together. And so it'd be really cool to be able to, just quietly to someone say, I wrote that. And so like it's just, it's known by so many people, used so much. And it's not about, the shiny, oh, look what I did, but about being able to have that impact and make a difference to, just general everyday people, not just the students, but just people in general.
That's fascinating. I love it. Number 4, if you could perform a duet with any musician, living or dead, who would it be?
I would say Mozart. And I would love to see him in his improvising, composing element. And so, being able to have him sit down at harpsichord or whatever and watch him play something and then try and keep up, that would be really cool. I'd be on my toes doing it, but I would really enjoy doing that.
Oh, my goodness. I would be terrified, but I'm glad that excites you. Oh, I mean, it would be exciting, but terrifying.
It would. I always loved, growing up, I loved listening to Mozart music, and I would find that I could try and look at how he'd written things and think, oh, okay, how could I use that if I was composing as 9-year-old Claire composing songs? So I suppose just being able to actually see that live and see it for real, it would be pretty cool.
Wow. All right, last question. If music teachers had a theme song, what do you think it should be?
I would say, I know it's corny, but I would say Thank You for the Music by ABBA, because it kind of sums up everything.
I love it. I think that's a perfect place to finish. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, Claire.
Thank you for having me, Debbie. Real pleasure.
As we know, laughter relieves stress. Don't lose sight of the funny side of life. I was looking after the blacksmith's dog. I don't think he's very happy here. He made a bolt for the door. Thank you so much for watching our Crescendo Music Education podcast. For more information about all things Crescendo, including membership and music education resources, visit us at crescendo.com.au. Don't forget to like and subscribe